5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And with that, welcome to your Media Mosh podcast. I am your host, Shane Beauregard, coming at you with all your news, reviews, and previews on what to watch on your streaming services and your television. Looks like we have no more local theaters for now. Still, if you're from the Greensboro area, sad news. The Cinemark theaters at Brassfield are permanently closed, which leaves 2 theaters remaining. Both remain closed. One local, which I hope somehow survives. And then the Regal cinemas are still closed, but they should be open whenever we get big screen or big ticket movies back on the big screen. So I know it's been a while. I've been burning the midnight oil, as I say. I've had a lot of projects just spinning on a bunch of different plates, and so I had to miss some time. So I do apologize, but here we are. If you missed me last week or you missed my voice over the last 2 weeks, I was on the Nomcast podcast with Andrew Morgan. Great time as always. And I was joined by Mr. Arg myself, Chris Rodell, as we broke down, or I should say Andrew broke down the Golden Globes, and we gave our two cents. And then we went over some international crime thrillers on Netflix. You know those movies. Strange movies from Italy or France or Canada that ends up in the top 10 and just lingers there for a while. No one knows why. Those movies. So if you want to hear that, you should already be listening to the Nomcast. But if you're not, go download that episode wherever you download your favorite podcast. Always a great time, and thank you once again. Now, again, it's been a while since I've been on, so there's been a lot of news, old news that I'm just not going to touch upon. The first bit of news, it's not really news, it's more of a annoyance for me. Now, you could pick up on certain celebrities when they do commercials. And Fred Savage has been the voice of Honda forever. But recently, and this is old, but I just want to talk about this, they replaced Fred Savage with John Cena. And that pisses me off. I'm not a huge fan of John Cena. Like, he's okay. But he's everywhere now. He's doing insurance commercials, fucking milk commercials, hefty bag commercials. He's doing, and God bless him for his hustle. But Jesus Christ, come on, Honda. Fred Savage was a much better spokesman for your product than John Cena. There, I got that off my chest. Going back to the Golden Globes, now, again, I didn't watch it, and we covered a lot of the Netflix movie stuff on it last week. Whenever I think of the Golden Globes, for me personally, I always think about the shows. That's kind of what I care about more than the movie side, or the shows, dramas, whatever it is. So I was glad to say, the only thing I'm going to say is I'm glad Jason Sudeikis won for Ted Lasso. I did a show about that a couple episodes ago. If you haven't seen Ted Lasso on Apple Plus, and you probably have a free year trial with Apple Plus and not even know it. If you have a new Apple product or a new Verizon phone, you have Apple Plus. Trust me, just look into it. And do yourself a favor and watch that show. It is a great show. Now let's talk about Zack Snyder. No, let's not talk about Justice League. I'm fucking over that. That does nothing for me. I'm not excited about it. Army of the Dead. We got our first teaser trailer. I'm on board. It looks fun. It looks good. Count me in. I think Netflix said that comes out in May. Liam Neeson, Netflix just picked up his movie, and again, we discussed this last week, but it's called The Ice Road. So it reminded me of almost any other Liam Neeson movie. Like, didn't he just come out with like a snowplow movie like 2 years ago? Guys is pumping them out now. Sad news, Truth Seekers is canceled, so we won't get to see the continuation of that Nick Frost Simon Pegg vehicle, which was a very solid first season, so I don't know why Amazon Prime decided to pull the plug on it, but they did. And now I guess Paramount Plus is launched, and they are premiering with a new SpongeBob movie and all your other good stuff. Real World New York reunion, like we need to see that. But anyway, it kills me because a lot of people cut cable, and now like every station has their plus. CBS Plus, ESPN Plus. By the time you add it up, if you get all those, you might as well just go ahead and get cable again. This is fucking ridiculous. Turning our attention to this week, or this month in Netflix, it's a scarce month for some quality stuff on Netflix. So what I'm going to do is after my top 10 Netflix shows and movies, I'm going to give you just several options on other streaming services that are coming out within the next week or two. And if anything pops up in the forefront, I will obviously keep you abreast of that situation. So let's get into the top 10 Netflix shows and movies today. Number 10, The Rosamund Pike, I Care a Lot. Number 9, Coco Melon. Number 8, Good Girls. Number 7, the Netflix original movie Moxie with Amy Poehler that came out yesterday. The Netflix original show Behind Her Eyes, number 6. Number 5 is the Nickelodeon iCarly. Number 4 is Biggie, I Got a Story to Tell, which is a Netflix documentary. Number 3, Bigfoot Family, which is a Netflix kids animated show. Number 2, Murder Among the Mormons, another Netflix original documentary. And number 1, Jeannie in Georgia, which is a Netflix original movie. Never heard of it. So, I already told you Moxie's out now on Netflix. It stars Amy Poehler, and she actually directs this movie. On March 8th, if you're into Nate Bargatze, his new stand-up special is coming out March 18th. His first one, The Tennessee Kid, is a really good stand-up set. So if you have it, check them out. You don't know who he is, and if you're into stand-up, go check him out. And then finally on the 20th is Jiu-Jitsu, which is not a Netflix original movie, but it is that Nick Cage movie where a bunch of Jiu-Jitsu people fight aliens and predators or whatever. That comes out on the 20th. But the biggest release this Friday is Coming to America 2 on Amazon Prime. Now, I was going to make that my Friday movie to watch until I learned Frank Grillo has a new movie coming out on Hulu that night called Boss Level, about some kind of soldier who gets killed and gets caught in a time loop and he has to fight his way to find out what happened to him. First of all, you had me at Frank Grillo, so that bumps Coming to America 2. I know, I might be standing on an island by myself with that statement, but that is my Friday night movie, Boss Level. And over on Apple Plus, March 12th, you have the Tom Holland movie Cherry, which is not getting favorable reviews, but I'm still going to check that out. Over on Disney Plus, coming up the 19th of March, you have The Falcon and Winter Soldier. That is going to start as soon as WandaVision ends. Now, let's get right into what I watched before I go into my reviews. I started watching The Crew with Kevin James. He plays a crew chief on a NASCAR team. It's not really good, but for some reason I just had it in my background while I was doing some work. It's harmless. That's what I'll say. It's harmless. It's like several notches below King of Queens, though. But it's passable, so I've been watching that. And then we just finished Bridgerton Season 1. And I told you this was a Shane show. I don't know why, but it is. But I'm going to tell you what, fellas. Just take my advice on this one. If you're a woman, significant other, whatever he or she is, if they want to watch Bridgerton, you sit right next to them. And just kind of half pay attention, but be next to that person. Because there's enough steam in there that might pay dividends for you, if you know what I mean. And I kind of can't wait for season 2. Other than that, when I've been doing work, my guilty pleasure show is Chopped on the Food Network. I get addicted to that show, so that's what I've been filling my time with. Now, let's go into WandaVision. I think we have 2 episodes left, I believe. I can't remember. I've been watching it every week. And after episode 3, I've totally fallen in love with the show. I'm not saying it's the greatest Marvel show ever. It's still not better than Daredevil on Netflix, but I like the storytelling. I like how they're tying everything together. I do like the characters. It's a really strong, solid show. They finally revealed the villain 2 weeks ago. You found out how Wanda was went through so much trauma and drama throughout her life and caused her to do what she did to this town, which is a very interesting episode. And make sure you stick to the end, very end, because the last 2 episodes have been showing like little 30-second clips leading into the next episode. Which is funny because when you cue this show up, it'll say like 45 minutes. And then by the 34-minute mark, it'll be over. So I'm like, there has to be something. And there usually is about a minute after the credits roll. And then the rest of the 5 minutes is extra credits. So really solid entry. I can't wait to see how this thing finishes. I'm going to say they're going to introduce... Now, I don't know because I stay away from all the rumors and guesses and theories on what's going to happen. I do believe they're going to introduce a Fantastic Four member by the end of it. That's just my personal theory. Now, I have watched a lot of movies, not a lot of good movies, so I want to preference that. So I'm going to give you 3 quick reviews here. And not in any particular order. I guess I'm going to go from worst to first. The first one is I Care a Lot with Rosamund Pike, who won Best Actress at the Golden Globes. I will watch her eat a cup of yogurt, smoke a cigarette, go to the bathroom. I don't care what it is. I will watch her. So this one is 81% critic score with a 35% audience score. It also stars Peter Dinklage, Eliza Gonzalez, who I'm becoming a big fan of. She was in Bloodshot, and she's in another movie I am going to review today, and Diane West. And she plays a character named Marla Grayson. And this movie is about a crooked legal guardian who drains the savings of her elderly wards, meets her match when a woman she tries to swindle turns out to be more than she first appears. Now, this movie had loads of potential. It really did. I enjoyed the first half of this movie. I love a good con movie. I do. And again, she is ruthless. She takes no shit from nobody, from anybody, really. And her partner is Eliza Gonzalez, who is like her PI, and they're also lovers, which I'll get to that in a second. I wish we would have seen more of that. I guess we don't have to wait a second. There was a couple scenes in here where they started making out. I'm like, oh, come on. Then I realized it's 2021. If this was 1996, that would have been a scene that had been replayed in my mind over and over and over. But anyway, I digress. Again, she's in cahoots. She has a chain, someone she works with, a doctor who hands her these, what they call cherries. And she also has it in at this old folks home, I guess, like a retirement home. So without the cherries' permission, or without even them knowing, she goes to court, gets the doctor to sign an order saying they can't take care of themselves, and then puts her in that home and like just sells her all her estate stuff and controls her money. That's her grift. Until she meets Diane West, who she runs the grift on, but Diane West has a secret. And they're played by her son, Peter Dinklage, and that's where the story becomes interesting. It's a big cat and mouse game because Marla's trying to find out what her past is. She's not who she says she is, just like in the description. One thing leads to another, and again, it's a big cat and mouse game. Again, good premise. First half executed really well. I love Peter Dinklage's character. I'm not going to spoil anything, so I'm not even going to tell you who he is. But the last half of this movie just falls apart. It just gets too off the roads, too crazy, too silly. And it's not Rosamund Pike. The acting here is fine across the board. They're let down by the screenplay. This movie just went bananas. And you could kind of see this movie coming if you pay attention to the first scene of the movie, because that sets up how ruthless Marla is. But then you kind of forget about it. Third act, when it happens, I didn't give a shit. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't give a shit. Because one thing in this movie is usually you care, or you have an invested interest in the person pulling the grift, right? At least in most grift con movies. Her, you don't like her. She's not a likable character at all, period. So I gave two shits. Now, the ending of this movie reminded me a lot of Layer Cake, which in that case, if you haven't seen Layer Cake, go check that movie out. Daniel Craig, directed by Matthew Vaughn. Fantastic movie. But if you've seen that movie, you know where I'm getting at. That pissed me off. In fact, because you care about Daniel Craig. But at least in that movie, they had an alternate ending. So, and I do like, it's one of the few alternate endings I like better than the theatrical release. So yeah, a lot of good turns in here. Then it just got wild, silly, and just, and of course, you'll read reviews saying this is a stance on capitalism and blah, 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 blah. I'll tell you, I go into movies with Shane goggles on. I don't read deep into movies, okay? I take it at surface level. Unless they just hit you over the head with what they're trying to tell you, then I get it. But other than that, I can give a shit. As long as you're entertaining me. And for halfway through this, entertain me. Now, if you would have had the lovemaking scene in there, this movie would have got a lot better score. But as it stands, I don't understand the 81% at all. Like, I am clueless. I lean more towards the critics, though I'm not going to be that harsh because I do like the cast. So, just be aware when you watch this movie. I'm going to give I Care a Lot a 2.5 out of 5. Now, moving on to the next movie. This is another Netflix original. This is Cutthroat City. Came out about 2-3 weeks ago. This is sitting at 70% critic score with a 39% audience score. And this movie stars Shameik Moore. You'll know him from the movie Dope. Demetrius Shipp Jr., Eliza Gonzalez, once again, she's in this. T.I., the rapper. Ethan Hawke. Katrina Graham, who was one of my first Mochaccino babies. She was in Vampire Diaries. Terrence Howard, and you get a Wesley Snipes appearance in here. If you want to see Wesley Snipes trying a Cajun accent while chewing a pipe, this is the movie for you. That's all I'll say. So the basic plot of this movie is when Hurricane Katrina devastates New Orleans, four desperate friends band together to pull off a daring heist in the heart of the city. This takes place in the Ninth Ward of New Orleans. I've never been, but apparently that's like the worst section of New Orleans. And again, you have four friends. The main character, Shameik Moore, plays a character named Blink. And he just got married. He has a baby. He's an aspiring artist, but because he is who he is, he can't get a chance. So him and his three friends, struggling for money, trying to make ends meet, they reluctantly go into a deal with T.I., who plays one of the drug lords in New Orleans. And somehow he controls like FEMA money. That's another aspect of this movie, like the FEMA relief fund. Somehow he is scamming FEMA, so he controls the bulk of the money. So he sends them to rob a casino, and somehow they get crossed. Like another crew shows up as they're leaving the casino, and they have to go on the run. And all they want to do is go back home. Now, Ethan Hawke plays a crooked city council who used to be a detective. He has invested his interest in the casino, so he sends Eliza Gonzalez, who plays a detective, to try to track these boys down and find out what happened. So I can understand why the audience score is so low, because this is a slow setup. Like the first hour is a slow setup. But I'm going to tell you, I really enjoyed this movie. Now, again, as Gonzalez is tracking Blink and his crew down, his wife, played by Katrina Graham, pleads with Ethan Hawke and tries to make him understand why he did what he did. Then Ethan Hawke has a turn of heart and tries to get the boys home safely. So as they're on the road trying to get back home or trying to figure out their final move, that's when they go to Wesley Snipes. He plays Blink's father, and then he's like in one scene and they leave. So their only chance, they figure, is to see another kingpin who's actually higher in the chain than T.I., played by Terrence Howard, who enters during the third act. And I actually liked his character. He kind of hams it up, and that's fine. That's fine by me. But then you have the third act when they try to knock off the FEMA relief station. So that's all I'll say about the movie without spoiling it. What I really liked about this movie, though, is the chemistry between the main group of guys. The cast is really good. Ethan Hawke is Ethan Hawke. I mean, again, Terrence Howard kind of hams up the set. That's fine. But Blink and his crew and the struggles they go through, they give you a good in-look depth at life in the Ninth Ward during Hurricane Katrina. You really do feel for them. And I'm sure there are a lot of people like that out there. And it got through. And I forgot to mention this movie is directed by the RZA from Wu-Tang Clan, who directed The Man with the Iron Fist. I think that's the other movie he directed. This I found out to be a much better effort on his part. Again, I don't want to say it's the best movie. He's only directed like 2 or 3 things, but I do like the way he directed this movie. A much better effort than The Man with the Iron Fist. The only problem I have with this movie is the last act. And without spoiling it, it's kind of going to be tough to talk about. Because there's 2 scenes, the 2 last scenes, kind of throw you for a loop. There's one scene directly after what you thought was the last scene. It kind of throws you off and like, how is this happening now? And you're like, okay, I kind of get it if you kind of like put your mind to it. But then they hit you with another scene about 3 minutes post credit, and it's like, okay, now I'm really lost. So because of that, this movie kind of stumbles. Again, without spoiling it, the 2 scenes after the final scene kind of just throw a monkey wrench into this movie. I enjoyed the slow build up, again, the slow burn. And this movie has a scene I don't think I've ever seen. If you want to see a raccoon eat a guy's dick off, again, this is the movie for you. On top of Wesley Snipes talking his Cajun while chewing on a pipe. So put those 2 things together. That might pique your interest a little bit more. I did not know raccoons would bite your dick off, but apparently they do. And that is T.I.'s punishment, a choice for anyone who crosses him. So on this one, I'm more with the critics. I'm going to give Cutthroat City a 3 out of 5 because of the storytelling, because of the cast. I think Shameik Moore, I like him. He was, again, if you haven't seen Dope, that was an excellent movie. He does another good job here. So 3 out of 5 for me on Cutthroat City. The last one I'm going to throw at you was on 2. If you go back and look, I'm a big horror fan. So if you go back and look, like top horror movies in 2020, This movie came up in a lot of them. And I don't really consider this a horror movie, as more of like a thriller. There is bloodshed, but it has horror elements, but I wouldn't fully say this is a horror film. It's more of a suspense thriller for me. And that movie is Spree. Sitting at 65% critic score to 58% audience score. This one stars Joe Carey, who plays Steve in Stranger Things. Sasheer Zanita, who plays Jesse Adams. And you have David Arquette playing Joe's father. And then you have an appearance by Misha Barton and Frankie Grande. Thirsty for a following, a rideshare driver has figured out a deadly plan to go viral. So Joe plays a guy named Kurt World 96. And you have to pay attention to the beginning of this movie because he kind of sets up how he wants to get into social media. He was a babysitter of this kid named Bobby. And as Bobby became a preteen, like teenager, I guess, he is a huge gamer, has a huge following. So Kurt's trying to piggyback off of him. Again, he's a rideshare driver. He has all these cameras everywhere in his car. And he records live all the time. All the time. Now, I did not think I would make it through 10 minutes of this movie the way this movie was shot. I mean, basically through cell phone camera and the cameras in the car. That's all you really get. I guess there's one scene towards the end, and I'll get to that in a second. So, again, watch the setup of this movie. He kind of like gives you his life story and how he became a rideshare driver. His father, David Arquette, is like a DJ who keeps promising Kurt he'll get him followers and whatnot, and he really doesn't. So after years, or a year doing this, he's still getting like single-digit views, and Bobby calls him a joke, and he hatches this plan to try to like up his viewership. And again, when this movie was going on, I didn't know if it was going to be like American Psycho or a movie like it's in his head, and then at the end of the movie, nothing really happened. But no, it really happens. So he gives these videos along the way about what he's doing. Like he spikes these waters with this knockout whatever drug, and then he kills these people. So he did it a couple times, didn't get any views. And then he picks up this comedian played by, again, Sasheer Zanita, Jessie. And she has a huge following. She's a stand-up comic, and he kind of attaches himself to her. But while she's in the car, she's sharing the ride with some douchebag Italian guy. I don't know why the Italian part's relevant, but he is. And he ends up kicking him out of the car, pleads with her to stay in the car, and she ends up leaving. So this is where I kind of like this movie a little bit more because it splits off into two different stories. You get Kurt's story, and you kind of get what Jesse's doing because she's kind of getting tired of social media, so she doesn't really want to know what to do. And this movie's kind of rolling along, and he has a couple more kills under his belt. But really, the best one in here is when I don't want to spoil it, but he picks up these 3 passengers and takes them on a cruise that doesn't end very well. And then he finally cracks through with getting more views. And it has to do with Bobby, the kid he babysat for. Jesse's story kind of ties in at the end. And that last scene where she's in the comedy club and she says she's getting off of social media and blah, 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 blah. That scene is shot straight forward. That's like the only scene in this movie that's kind of shot straight forward. But again, I liked it. And again, this movie's about the pitfalls of social media and how it could really affect people in negative ways. Because it's a full-time job for these people. And, you know, it just shows you the pitfalls and what people will go through to get famous. Now, the only thing I really didn't like about this movie is they don't really show you his breaking point. You know, I'm assuming he was always kind of like he had that in the back of his mind, or he was just a kid that just had that in him to do what he does to these people. But a very tight, suspenseful movie. It's a quick runtime of like an hour and a half. And I really like the performance by Joe Carey here because I've only seen him like in Stranger Things and those Taco Bell commercials for the nacho cheese fries. But, man, he's captivating in this movie. He does a really good job. And I actually like the actress who played Jesse Adams. You know, David Arquette's David Arquette. I mean, he's in there for a couple scenes. He's fine. So, again, I was pleasantly surprised by this movie. I go higher than the critics and the audience in this. I give this a 4.0 out of 5. Now, I know I stumbled through all 3 of those reviews, but I'm out of practice for a couple weeks, so you're going to have to excuse me while I tighten things back up. So that's it. Spree, 4.5 out of 5. You can find that in Hulu, by the way. That's a Hulu movie. Well, it's not a Hulu movie, but you can find it on Hulu right now. I advise you to check that out. So that's it, folks. I know it's been a couple weeks. Again, I apologize. Go check those movies out. And just prepare next week after I watch Boss Level. I might do a whole Frank Grillo episode. So be ready for that. I'll watch that guy in anything. That's going to be my review. And hopefully I'll get to Coming to America as well. But probably not. I'm not going to I'm not going to put too much on me. But I will watch Boss Level. So until then, everyone enjoy their week. Stay safe. Be well. In the meantime, go check me out on the Apple Podcast Store. Download me. Share me with your friends. I promise you they'll thank you for letting me into their lives. Go check me on the Facebook. Actually, don't check me on Facebook. I don't really post anything there. But you can check me on the Twitterverse at Shane Media Mosh. And then go check out Mr. Arger myself, Chris Rodell, on the Instagram, Facebooks, and Twitter. 3 different platforms for 3 different types of content. Until then, get caught up. Get caught up in the mosh.